Today we're going to talk about commas and how to use them correctly. Commas are an essential part of being a great writer, and without them, you are going to just have run-ons and incorrect and incomplete papers that just don't make as much sense as they could as if you'd use commas, and they're really easy to incorporate. So we're going to talk about, I believe, five main ways to use commas. First of all, use a comma before a coordinating conjunction, a fanboy, that separates two independent clauses. For example, I would love to go to the party, but I'm not feeling well today. He's a good friend, but he doesn't always make the best decisions. And as a reminder, fanboys are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So anytime you use one of those fanboys to connect a sentence, you have to set it up with a comma. I want to go to the mall, comma, and get a new pair of shoes. I want to go to Sephora, comma, so I can buy new lipstick. Every time that I use a fanboy to connect a sentence, you have to use a comma. Otherwise, it turns into a run-on. Use a comma to separate the independent clauses. So maybe you have a sentence that's not necessarily, that doesn't require a fanboy, but you know that it still needs a comma to separate it. So one thing that you can do is figure out what's the independent clause and what's the dependent clause. So for example, strangely, no one has suggested that we need to go to summer school. I know that no one has suggested that we need to go to summer school is its own total thought. Strangely, is total just a bonus expression to add onto the sentence, that it implies that it's weird that maybe these students should go to summer school, yet the teachers aren't paying enough attention or aren't thinking about them. Despite the athlete's high hopes, his illusions were shattered. We know that his illusions were shattered is a total independent clause. You can say that and it's done. There's a subject, his illusions, and what happened were shattered. Now, if you look at despite the athlete's high hopes, that's a dependent clause that cannot stand on its own. Therefore, we need to connect them using a comma. Using the comma around a descriptive phrase in the middle of a sentence. If you took this phrase out, it probably wouldn't matter. And this is a really important rule to remember because lots of people add details in that need to be in these commas because they're supplemental. They're unnecessary, but they're helpful. So if I was to say Steve Jobs created some amazing products, I wouldn't need to say he was the original Apple CEO because one, a lot of people know who he is, and two, doesn't matter that he was for Apple because some of the products he made weren't with Apple. So Steve Jobs, the original Apple CEO, created some amazing products. Again, that's totally supplemental. It's not necessary. It doesn't change the meaning of the sentence. If we took that out, it would not change the meaning of the sentence. Niall Horan, originally from Ireland, is a member of One Direction. Again, we don't need to add that he's originally from Ireland because it doesn't change the meaning of the sentence. He still is a member of One Direction. Use commas in between items in a series or list. This is a pretty easy one. Most people know it. For example, I like tragedies, commas, and dramas. Tragedies, comedies, and dramas. I'm listing all the types of movies or plays or books that I like. I like to run around the track, lift some weights, and go for a swim after school. This comma right here is called the Oxford comma. I'm a big fan of the Oxford comma, so I say you should use it, but that's all for another video. So anytime you have a list of, really, I say 3 or more, you have to put a comma after each one. And then last but not least, use commas in between quotation marks. So if it starts with the quote, like the first example does, I would like to play the violin, the comma goes before the last quotation mark. If the quotation is last, like the second one, Robert said, then you put the comma before the quotation mark. So the comma goes in the quotation marks if it's first, and it goes just outside if it's last. If it comes after the Robert said, the so-and-so said, so-and-so asked. So here are some practices for you to look at. So there's 7 on this one and 8 on this one. So there's all of them quotes, there's lists, there's the phrases that can be taken out. So hopefully this helps you understand the importance of commas. They are simple and it just is something that takes constant practice in doing. So make sure you use them because they're totally necessary to being a strong and successful writer.